Good morning, Amy Mosher Berry. How are you?
I'm great, Melissa J. Pond. Thank you so much for reconnecting. I adore you, and I'm so happy to be in the presence of your smile. You have one of the best smiles of anyone I know.
Thank you. It's been a while.
It
It's been a
has.
while and it's been a long winter, but here we are. We started
Yeah.
this journey back when we met through uh Amy Goober's event,
Yes.
and then we worked together. You did a different VIP package with me, and then you
Yes.
came back for the Greater Boston Women's Impact Network VIP package. And so here we are doing an interview.
I just can't get enough of you, girl. So thanks for all that you put out there for us to keep growing.
Same. And I love that we have so much in common, the government
Yeah, I
background,
know.
the entrepreneur background, the brunettes.
Yes.
What else? What else? So
Brunettes most days.
let's start with your
Yes.
story. What inspired you to
Sure.
start Visions Internships?
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, yes, I did start my company Visions Internships in December of 2020. So arguably the darkest time in the darkest year, if we all can remember what we were doing there at the tail end of 2020, just trying to survive and like reinvent ourselves and like what's happening to ourselves and our families and the world. So it was a really crazy time, but I basically it was after previously I've done a lot of different things as you alluded to. So certainly I've worked in local government as you had. I was in the workforce development side, community development side of things, a lot of youth development years. I worked in for-profit, nonprofit government. I also taught college for 5 years just before COVID hit. So from 2014 to 2019, I taught at two different schools in Worcester for 5 years actually at Worcester State, 2 years at Clark, and I really enjoyed teaching that college age. And I realized, especially being a social entrepreneur, I saw a really critical problem that I saw, which especially with my graduating seniors. So I saw, I taught over 650 college students in 5 years at these two schools, and I just kept seeing my amazing, talented students graduating with little to zero like real world experience. And then at the same time, Melissa, I had so many of my own friends, colleagues, and regardless of the industry, they would say, Amy, can you just hook me up with a good intern? And I was like, oh my goodness, we've got to make this work better for both the young people and the host organizations. So I really had started first when I launched this. I said, I'm so focused on the work ready intern, and I realized a couple years in that I really had overlooked the need for the intern ready organization. So that was the big pivot that took place at the end of 2022, heading into 2023. And I do just want to say at that same time that I was having this huge business epiphany and subsequent pivot, my own dear beloved mom had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. And so we were on that journey at the same time, so eventually I did lose my mom in December of 2023. And, we were really like two peas in a pod. My mom really was, you know, my bestie in so many ways. I also had, gone through a separation, divorce. My mom was like always there for me really throughout my whole life. Obviously, having a kiddo, to have that backup was huge, whether I was working for myself or working for anyone else. So it was just a huge loss. Honestly, it took me quite a while to mourn my mom and come out of that. And I did, but it was like this time that I was both pivoting my business and therefore services, right? Because I had focused mainly on program delivery, really directly serving young professionals in all of the career and work readiness stuff, which I know you're familiar with. And I love that, but I just became a miss. I said, you know what? The thing that's missing is that the organizations aren't really well prepared to receive the intern and work with them effectively. They're really lacking that internship program infrastructure. And that's the piece as like an innovative program designer. That's the piece that I thought I could really add the most value. So it was just a lot happening at one time. And we are now more focused on serving those, let's say, 2 to 4 people inside of typically like a more small to mid-sized organization that's looking for project support and access to talent. But they're open to an internship program, but they're sort of like, how's that going to work? Who on staff is going to be able to set that up and run it? So I just want to make their lives easier. And that by extension really helps the young people feel like they have more early career opportunities. So that's
Absolutely.
a little bit of my story.
I landed my first job from an internship, and so I know how important
Nice.
that is, and I commend you on the work you're doing because it's so important to career development for our young people.
Yeah, totally. It really does. And I look back too, I had a couple of internships in my day, and sometimes you just gotta like get really, I guess this is the entrepreneur in me, and I know you can relate, Melissa, where it's like, oh, well, that's not structure. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and put that together and we kind of learn as we go. But one of the things that I really want to support busy leaders that are already stressed out, right, up to their eyeballs, especially
Yeah.
now, it's like, oh my gosh, managers today, they have a hard enough time keeping track of their paid and experienced staff. So it's kind of made the internships fizzled out a little bit, not quite as much of an obvious business priority. And, one of the things I just want to help the people inside of these busy organizations put something in place that really serves their interests and meets their goals.
Yeah,
It's not just some other thing on their plate, which feels like more work.
exactly. I also had an internship that wasn't super helpful. Ironically, it was in grant
Yeah.
research, and I didn't have
Uh-huh. And
any
here you
training in
are.
it at the time. I didn't have any training in it at the time, and the nonprofit also wasn't training me in it. They were just like, go look for grants for us. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. Throw me a bone, please.
So that was really tricky. So I had the experience of having a really great internship where there was
Yeah.
structure, there were mentors, there were clear assignments, there were clear
Yeah.
roles, and then I had the experience of here's a task that our organization needs done, go do it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just completely left to my own devices, just a college student learning business, not knowing anything about grants.
Yeah.
So
No,
that was super
totally.
interesting, but also
I
that
love that
helped
you had
me.
those two like very different experiences and you're pulling
Yes.
from that. And then here you are with your own business in a similar space. I love that for you.
But it's also very cool because now I just set up
Yeah,
an opportunity for someone to work with me doing grant research, and I know what works and what doesn't because of that.
totally.
So,
I love that. No, and one of the things, I talk about with the organizations, and it's very common. Like they'll be like, oh, either we've maybe worked with an intern in the past, or we're open to just bringing in any old, an intern. Like maybe it's my neighbor's kid who needs an internship this summer. So I just like to make sure that the leaders in these organizations that they get the support that they deserve. There's a real important distinction between having interns and having an internship program,
yes.
right? And so while I can provide some tips and mistakes to avoid if you're just going to bring in one intern, there are so many reasons to really take a little bit more time and thought up front to structure a really well thought through internship program, because we know that interns by definition, they come and go. Individual interns come and go, or
Yeah.
cohorts, groups of interns come and go, but the internship program, in my view, needs to be a long-term program solution for the
Yeah.
organization.
Absolutely. It helps build consistency because of that
Yes, totally.
constant turnover. You want to have a program that, the intern comes in, we have a system for them, right? And that's
Exactly.
exactly what you build for them.
We don't just match and pray, although that's also been done many times. And I was like, this is so fun. I'm a matchmaker, right, for everybody else, which is another joke over wine. But, anyways, yes, good stuff.
And as you've built Visions internships, how has your own leadership evolved?
Oh my goodness, this is so good. And a lot of us, ladies, especially, listening, if you yourself are in business or you have been or thinking about it, like, there's so many different roles that we have the ability, right? Like sometimes we're multi-passionate and multi-talented, but I've really learned to do a better job saying, what is my unique sort of more critical contribution to the work I do, how and where can I stay in my lane, so I would say where I shine is in thought leadership around intergenerational workforce dynamics, certainly around internship program design and management and really helping those leaders. So it's like bringing that value. I really enjoy doing more speaking and training and coaching sort of more out front. I've noticed, Melissa, like any of us who have tried to build something, right? Especially from nothing. There's so many hats we wear, including those that we really don't shine. Like I was in the back end technical weeds for a good 2 years. It just so happened to be during the time I was also pivoting services and mourning my mother. So that worked for me at a point. But in terms of my leadership now, like I'm really remembering, okay, where do I bring the most value and really try to stay in those lanes that I mentioned that I also really enjoy. I notice that like, when I'm not interacting with people as much, and if I'm just hanging out in the Zoomosphere, while there's a lot of good going on here, I feel like I sort of lose motivation myself. So I want to be more out front. I am the person representing my company, even though sometimes, you get sick of seeing your own face on like these posts or whatever. It's like, well, I am the founder and the face of it. And I do enjoy directly interacting with people. So that's a good place for me to be doing more strategic networking, love to, speak, especially in community groups. So I think that's really helpful is like also putting, like you said, systems in place for my own business to be able to delegate.
Yeah.
Because without the systems and processes identified, and I know because you had helped me certainly in a lot of ways, but with the marketing and community engagement playbook that we had done together, spelling out certain things, it
Yeah.
transfers that vision, right? We can't expect people to be in our head, if we don't clearly demonstrate before we delegate, it can fall short. So I'm just working also on documenting what works well so that I can continue to grow as a leader and do more delegating and grow. I mean, I really would love to have a much bigger organization and a bigger team than I have now. And I get really excited about that. So I see that, it's not just about me doing all the work and delivering all the
Right.
value. It's like creating the systems and the team to go bigger.
Absolutely. That's kind of my favorite part about entrepreneurship is there's always another opportunity to grow. You
Amen,
build
sister.
this one thing and now you can go to the next level. It's just, there's no stopping. So,
Totally.
what are you stepping into more boldly right now that maybe you weren't fully claiming a year ago?
Yeah, that's great. Well, interestingly enough, especially being here in Massachusetts, we just so happen to live in a state that has something called the Innovation Career Pathways. It's an ICP high school designation, and there's well over 100 that have been designated as Innovation Career Pathways. The current administration has really grown that number. And so, what I didn't quite see a year plus ago, that I'm seeing a lot more of is, especially being in Massachusetts, working actually more with these ICP high schools and also youth serving organizations, often youth serving agencies or nonprofits, that they themselves have their own goals to get their both students and young clients real world experience. So they have some kind of charge under a grant or what have you. I know this is also your space where they need to get those young people internships,
Yep.
but there's usually one person, if they're lucky, designated on staff to sort all this out. So often what those people do well, so let's say if it's somebody, and it's usually somebody in some sort of a career readiness, career guidance type role at the high school or youth serving organization. And when I say youth serving organization, it's often like that serving 16 to 24s, right? And they may be out of school youth. So what those folks are doing great is they have the relationships with their students and young clients. They can recruit them, get them excited about the different internship opportunities, do a little work readiness before placement. But it usually that's really they max out there, right? There's only usually one person if they're lucky. So I get to now support that particular person in that role in the school or youth serving organization. And I get to directly help those internship sites build out their internship programs so that when the students are connected, there's a more robust, intact program. And I'm supporting the people in charge of overseeing the internship at the host organizations, which is usually overlooked.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so that's sort of like, well, there's that keeps coming at me, especially happen to be in Mass. I believe we are the only one of the 50 states that has that particular designation, and it does come with some funding to those schools who have that requirement now, especially for seniors graduating here in Massachusetts to get internship experience. So it's a really nice way to just help people fulfill on what they've already said they want to do.
That's fantastic.
So, ladies out there, so oh my gosh, Melissa, I'm just gonna say on that point,
Yeah.
like less like constant like hunting like and I'm not looking to be anyone's hero. I'm looking to be your guide. Like if you guys are familiar with story brand, that's a really great concept of like delivering value by being the guide, helping the people in charge who already have these various responsibilities. So I'd say my theme for this year, girlfriend, it's not only like simplify to amplify, which I actually believe can be attributed to Marie Forleo. It's also like I'm all set with like over like hunting people down, like the
Yeah.
constant like convincing and finding and bringing them in, like just that kind of like energy. I'm like, no, let me position myself and my company in a
Right.
way that I'm literally helping you fulfill on what you already said. So I just wanted to add that if that's of value to your audience, because I know it's just an energy shift for me and I feel so much better
Yeah.
when I think and act like that.
I love that. So bold.
So
And
bold. I,
so bold.
I think it's because I'm in my late 40s now, and I'm like, oh no. I've said this a few times. I'm like, at this stage of my game, comma, like, no. Like we got to
Yeah.
know where we're going, like what feels like it's fueling us versus like exhausting us. So
Exactly.
there's that. Yeah.
Exactly. There's only so much time and only so much
Yes.
energy.
Amen.
What makes Visions internships unique, not just in what you do, but in how you approach it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I would say my just like undying commitment to serving both key audiences in the internship success equation, which would be the host organization, right? Who wants to work with young people, they want that project support, access to talent, the organization. But it's also about the young professionals, right? And making sure that we're not overlooking either party. I think that's been a miss for a long time. So
Yeah.
even though I've literally I've even lost certain advisors over the years, Melissa, right? Having been in business now, I'm coming up on 6 years, which is crazy. I've had different advisors like Amy, like after you've decided to really focus on helping organizations become more intern ready, so more of a B2B service, they're like, you just need to let the young people figure it out. And I'm like, if I just let the young people figure it out and I have no way that I still impact directly touch young people, I might lose my own juice here, people. So I did need to scale back big time what I do for young people, but I think one of the things that makes us really unique is this just eternal commitment to serving both. It's not just
Right.
connecting the two audiences. It's not about connect and pray. We know that doesn't work. It's about making sure that each of those critical audiences have what they need. And by extension, it feels like, if we're developing, and it's kind of like an organic, um, young talent pool, right? Through our various free resources. I have a nice network of both young people that have, were perhaps former college students of mine or were in previous programs or on my email list, part of our social. Like, we also have this annual conference. It's called the Career and Leadership Conference for Purpose Driven Young Professionals. So it's the one like main structured thing we do now for young people, but it keeps us like with a pulse on what
Yeah.
today's young people
Yeah.
are looking for. And I believe I do, with Visions, we do a good job helping organizations like bridge those generational gaps. It's important that organizations understand whether or not they're interested in bringing on interns, so to speak, they need to better understand what makes young people tick today and how to specifically attract and retain young people, because we all know that the cost of turnover is immense and we want to try to mitigate that risk. So internships, when well structured and well run, is one way that we can achieve that. So I feel like having those two sides where I'm able to kind of translate across those two different key audiences, again, organizations and young professionals, I think it brings more benefit to both.
Absolutely. And there is a big difference between the previous generation and the younger
Yes.
generation. I entered the workforce kind of like right in between that,
Hmm.
where all my mentors were people who had been in the same job for a really long time. And so I sort
Totally.
of followed that model, but then I was
Yep.
watching people come in underneath me and they were just like in and out, in and out, in and out. And
Yeah.
so in the same time that I was in the same job for, and granted, I moved up in different levels, but
Yeah.
in the same time that I was at the same job, like my peers were all doing like multiple, they had multiple
Yeah.
different organizations that they had served by that time. So, and there's, different pros and cons to that, but nonetheless, you describe yourself as an intergenerational workforce expert. What does that mean and why does it matter right now?
Yeah, thanks. I think that's definitely piggybacks on my previous response, which,
Yeah.
there's a lot of sort of like ships passing in the night, if you will, like, where, let's say the more seasoned professional, let's say he or she is managing, a team, a project, and they're wanting to, infuse some young talent, but they're just not really connecting. They're not understanding, what about young people today is going to have them stay interested and engaged. Like we hear a lot about employee engagement, which of course, like how do we achieve, especially for young professionals, employee engagement? What are they looking for as they're coming in, but also to stick around? So in terms of intergenerational workforce dynamics, as we know, there's, five generations in the workplace today. And as you mentioned, and it's mainly those middle generations, but we do have these young people that post COVID, they never really got that professional foot in the door. So they have a very different understanding of what work actually means, what that looks like and feels like. I'll just say a few things that I'll often share with employers to help understand where young people are coming from. So often young people are looking for their work world to fulfill a deeper purpose. So there's something called the purpose gap, where sometimes employers, even if you're doing that purposeful work, helping people, helping planet in some way, which is where a lot of young people are drawn, especially because again, this is a larger social comment, but it's so interesting. Less young people and probably people overall in our country are attending, specific religious or spiritual circles. I know people have their own thing, but a lot of young people are looking to get that like deep purpose, that sense of fulfillment and impact in their work, which may or may not be so overt for the employer. They need to get certain things done, but sometimes there's a miss in that. And it's really powerful. And there's little things that employers can do to in their recruitment, but also in their day-to-day operations to make young people feel like they really are doing. Another way to view it is meaningful, not just menial. And I always say, there's always some level of menial work, but if it's like a healthy, like 80-20 split, that's going to keep young people more engaged overall. They're also looking for frequent feedback. So they're looking for sort of coaching and direction, but like more frequent feedback than we might be used to. And they do like, and again, not all managers can just be like constantly giving feedback. They're used to like that more instant communication. So we need to make sure they have real expectations about what works for the employers as well. Young people are also looking for specific growth opportunities, right? And they do like tend to like more of a flexible or hybrid if that works for the employer. So that's just like to get into the mindset of the young people a little bit more. And then similarly, like I'll do a little bit of reality checking with young people in terms of what the employers want and need today, and they really do. They need the basics of what they've needed for a long time. I mean, they need somebody who's kind and, somebody who's a friendly person, who's open-minded, who's coachable, who's reliable, who's a decent critical thinker. They think for themselves. They're willing to take a shot. They're willing to, try their best to solve a problem or make a recommendation. But again, just being willing to show up and be that reliable, friendly person is a lot of times what employers are looking for. And I do let, young people know employers are like, we don't need young people to know everything.
Yeah.
While it's awesome that they can, utilize various tech tools, especially AI today, to become more efficient, we need people to be able to drive and be AI literate, of course. We really need people to, understand where we're coming from and be able to ask relevant questions. So that's one thing too, is I have young people sort of think about from the employer's perspective, what are some questions that you can ask the employer in a way that works for them, right? Not just constantly peppering them with questions or a million emails or
Right.
but those are some things like just to make sure that the various players in the workplace understand and appreciate the different generations that are really existing simultaneously, even if that's also in a virtual environment.
So well said, Amy. You definitely showed your expertise there. Great job. When you think about the next chapter of your work, what do you want to be known for?
No, that's awesome. What do I want to be known for? I would say looking at the world today, especially being a mama. And as you know, I have an almost 9-year-old daughter, and I've recently taken in my 13-year-old nephew. So I've doubled up on the kid count. And when I look at the current state of affairs and the future for our children, I'm a big fan of doing my little part while I'm still living and breathing to leave this world a little brighter than I found it. When we look at the headlines, I am concerned about our children and grandchildren's
Yeah.
futures. So I am really wanting to be known for somebody who's really helping, especially those social impact organizations that are already doing the important work of the world. And that's not just the nonprofit sector. Of course, I'm also very much referring to our nonprofits and thanking our nonprofit leaders. Oh my gosh, you guys, think about this country and the world without the third sector, right? The nonprofit sector. So I want to really do my part to build that capacity of those do good organizations and also make sure young people are feeling clear and confident and connected and like they're living into a future that inspires them. There, I believe all humans, we have a right to live into a future that inspires us, and we all have a role in making that happen. So I really love the idea. When I think about Visions Internships and sort of my legacy, I want to make sure that we're building brighter futures. One of my favorite like taglines that I use is co-creating a world that works, that we together are intentionally creating a world that works. And it very much, in my view, starts with young people feeling like they're engaged in purposeful work.
I love that. I think this is a great place to throw in one of my favorite things that I learned about you is that you met Jane Goodall.
Yes.
How did that inspire
Oh
you and
my
how does that
goodness.
tie into exactly what you were just talking about, doing good in the world, being meaningful
Totally.
impact, all of
Totally.
those things?
Do I need to break it out? I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I got my and sign. So doing well and doing good. So as you talked about, I love like how intrigued you were with my Jane Goodall story. So
I'm
I
obsessed.
had just graduated undergrad college. I went to UVM just a few years ago, graduated in 2001, just months before 9/11. 2 days before 9/11, I happened to be at a peace and sustainability, like, I mean, let's be honest, like the hippie kumbaya. I was back in Vermont with my people, and Jane Goodall was there for this big conference, big for Vermont, right? And I happened to be in the right place at the right time. And we had like, I mean, we had a solid, like, 7, 8 minute conversation about how I'm using my life and what I could use my life for. And she's like, no matter what happens in the world, she's like, Amy, there's all these things that are going to happen that you don't have control over. But just stay focused on where you can make a difference and follow your heart. Just follow your heart no matter what anybody else is doing or whatever else is happening in the world that you may not have control about. I was like, okay, thank you so much. And of course, what was I, 22? And it just stuck with me. And what happened 2 days later was we thought the world was ending with 9/11. That was
Yeah.
so horrendous, in a different way, but kind of our generation's COVID. Like it was just like the world felt like it was ending. Like, oh my God, are we going to die? And I was like, well, Jane told me that I should stay focused and, you know, bring that heart to my work and my life. And here we are. I mean, it totally shaped me. It gave me the courage to just keep going when things just feel so nuts that you're like, why the hell do I even care at this level? It just feels like we're all going to hell in a handbasket. But no, Jane
No,
told me to
I,
stay focused and follow my heart. So it made a big difference for me.
I
Love
love
Jane.
that.
May she rest in peace. And I
Yeah.
love that my daughter is a huge fan of that too. And she has a Jane Goodall book and she's like, Mom, you met her. And then just the fact that, Jane Goodall, and I'm just thinking of another, I'm thinking my daughter has these books on women leaders. I wonder where
Yeah.
she got those. And another, Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
Yeah.
also passed. So both Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Jane happen to be in this women's leadership book that my daughter has. And in my daughter's own lifetime, which has been pretty short, like, they were living and then they've
Yeah.
passed.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm so glad like they were here and I got to like know who they are, like what they stand for. So like it just makes a huge difference, the
Yes.
work we're doing, even though we look around and we wonder, like, am I making a difference? But my friends, we really are. We
Yes.
really are.
Yes, we are. And that's why you're part of Greater Boston Women's Impact Network, because you have that heart, that
Oh, well,
impact
like
heart.
attracts like.
Where are we in the questions? I threw you one that we didn't plan for. So,
Ah,
um,
I can take it.
why does community, speaking of Greater Boston Women's Impact Network, the community that we're building, why does community matter at this stage of your growth?
Oh my gosh, community matters more than ever. And I love that unity is right in the word
Community.
community. So I like to spell community, COMM, capital
Capital.
UNITY. There's a song there, UNITY. We could like rework that song for community. So it's like the coming together, the communication, the people being there for one another, no matter what's happening in the world. I mean, there's no price tag on that.
Right.
When I was a professor, I used to teach a lot about social capital. It's like, what are those invisible social networks, that really uphold us, especially when things are tough or unpredictable. I love the idea that, in fact, the only certainty is uncertainty. And what can mitigate the feeling of exasperation or even risk when things are uncertain or scary? It's like people coming together to support one another through that uncertainty. So I love that role for community. And I feel like I'm just naturally oriented toward community. Like I always, while I am very interested in continuing to make more money for my family and to grow myself, right? Money has literally never been a driving force for me. And like I've always gotten by, and like, I have a mindset that like I'm here for something bigger than myself and
Yeah.
the money will
Yeah.
come, and I'm
Yeah.
always somehow, I mean, I could give stories, but I don't want to go too off tangent here. um, there's so many examples of when I lead with my heart, I connect with my heart, somehow the universe delivers, like provides the soft landing to myself, to my daughter, to my family, because I am here for something bigger than myself. But like if I didn't have that community orientation, I don't think the universe would deliver in such a way. I can't always
Yeah.
explain these things, which I think is
Yeah.
part of what makes community so magical.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'm here for you. Like whoever's watching this, like community and I'd say kindness are like two of my top values. So I would love to also know how I can be part of, even more so part of other people's community. I feel like I've been dealing with so much personal stuff that I've kind of been a little bit more under the rock and a little bit less participating in community compared to what I'd like. But I feel like I'm kind of, coming up, whatever that means. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
out there more. Please, tap me if you guys want to connect. If I can support you or even promote, like whoever's watching this, I'd love to learn more about what you guys are doing so I can better promote. I have a pretty decent community and network myself, but I think I've just I'm also interested in like, invite me into your community, guys,
Yeah.
because I haven't done the like the kind of community building lately that I would really love to do. So I'm kind of now with spring coming around the bend, I've resolved a lot of personal stuff going on, and I'm really ready to be part of other people's communities as well. And I just love what you put out there for us, Melissa, like what you do for the community that you've put together is super inspiring. And we don't need to know how we do it all. We just can do it all together somehow, but not always at the same time, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And we have quite a bit of an expansion going on into Central Mass. We have another
Nice.
event coming up. I'll be releasing that shortly. It's in the works right now. And we're thinking quarterly for Central Mass. I
I
live on the
love
South
that.
Shore, so I'm able to like kind of do monthly. It's not consistent about monthly, but
Yeah.
on the South Shore. So I try to do, we're expanding. There's even some requests for
Yeah.
doing events down in Rhode Island. So
Nice.
we'll
That's
see. We'll
awesome.
see. We have people all over. But speaking of and going a little deeper on that community mattering to you in your stage of growth, you're building something meaningful. And why does community visibility and specifically Greater Boston Women's Impact Network and the
Yeah.
VIP experience, the amplification in that group matter for you right now?
I think, having so much of my own career in, nonprofit and community-based work, education, um, sometimes I forget of like the power of just saying hello, like in these groups, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, yes, I'm a service-oriented leader, entrepreneur, social impactor. But it's like, oh, how cool. Like these are people that actually probably are interested, whether they themselves or they know somebody, or maybe they
Yeah.
have a young person in their life that could
Yeah.
be inspired, attend our conference or get, an insight or connect with me. I do these like free career checkups with young people. It's like, if I were to just put that out there, like I'm like, whenever I do, and I remember to do that, and I'm going to be a lot more intentional, especially with the help of your playbook, rolling out, like actually posting and like remembering that like people in these communities, like they really do want to know what we're up to. Like I really want to know what other people are up to as well. And so that kind of visibility is so it's fun. First of all, it doesn't feel like it's like this humdrum, like intense marketing campaign that like, oh my God, I'm gonna invest all this money. I'm not gonna see it, any kind of ROI. Like just connecting with people naturally in your network, for example, with like-minded women and those that don't think alike. That's okay too. It's so fun to like connect and learn more about what we're each doing, and it doesn't feel like it's cumbersome. Like literally just me talking about it, I'm like, oh, I really haven't posted in like months on so many of these communities, including yours, including the larger BBW that we had connected with originally.
Yeah.
So to me it feels exciting, it feels fun, it feels like very supportive, as opposed to like I have to do this thing. It's like, oh, I get to
It's
connect
yeah.
in
Yeah.
community and I get to share. And you know what, if they're not interested in what I'm doing, I shouldn't feel badly. Like I want to know what they're doing anyways, and somebody might share it and you never know. So it
Yeah.
just feels kind of like more fun, and I think thank you for putting it back on my radar, Melissa, because with everything going on in my own life, especially on the personal front and just running my business day to day, it's a good reminder, and it feels like I can't wait to post. So thank you for that invitation.
Absolutely. And how does someone know if it's time to book a consultation with you?
Ooh. Well, I would say, especially on the organization side, which again is our primary target audience, is that, busy organizational leader. And if they're already thinking that, like, man, we have these frequent project support needs, wouldn't it be great to just have a few interns take some of this off their plate? Plus, we could give back, we could train them. So if you're already sort of like thinking about that, but don't quite have a structure or the capacity you think, definitely, connect. So if you're needing project support, if you're thinking about building some kind of a talent pipeline, even if you're not ready to hire immediately, it's such a wonderful way to try it before you buy it, right? We live in a performance-based world. So if you're part of a team, really if you're 5 people or more, right? It's tough for me to work with just that solopreneur that might be thinking of bringing on an intern because there's really nobody to delegate to. So I can still connect with you and provide you some helpful insights. But in terms of who might want to book a consultation to consider being part of what's called the Internship Insider is our main signature service. It's really a way that we help the right leaders set up and run an internship program for you. So you kind of already have to be kind of thinking you're open to getting some professional support in this area. I'm more than happy to book a consultation. So we can do 25 minutes if you need up to 45 minutes. If you need a second one to really talk through how this can help your particular team meet your goals. And I am not afraid to talk about how a well run, well structured internship program can actually turn ROI. Like I love to
Yeah.
actually talk about how putting forward this sort of structure can bring solid ROI, like help you meet your goals, not just some other thing on your to-do list. So definitely connect with me. I have a free consultation, and I recently had shifted that. It's so funny because Melissa, you were so awesome with like the images. I'm like, can you change this? Can you change that? You're like, why don't you just take the Canva link and do it? So I love that. But yeah, I've been hearing for those of us who do any kind of like free, like what I would call connection call. I think you call it a discovery call. I've been learning about just also having a consultation where people can actually consider working with me and like getting into the weeds as to what that would look like. So I'm having more of those intentional conversations now, and it's definitely panning out. Like people are like, oh, I get it. I get how this could help our organization. Whereas before, I think I was super casual about everything. I still kind of have that casual people first, which I don't think I'll ever change.
Right.
But I do want to be a little bit more intentional. Let's really talk through what people are dealing with. What are your goals? What projects do you want? What questions do you have about internships? And
Yeah.
I am doing more of this like internship Q&A by request. Like there's a lot of frequently asked questions that I can just kind of help you, I'll say, avoid a lot of headache, aggravation, and obviously save time and money. So just kind of get your questions answered up front so that you can learn from the many mistakes other people have made.
Awesome. And final question, kind of just for fun. Finish the sentence. The future of leadership is,
The future of leadership is purposeful work when we get that we're here for something greater than ourselves.
yes. Yes. I love that. What a great way to end. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh,
Thank you for your participation in the group and as a VIP, and looking forward to seeing you again soon.
I cannot wait to see you soon, give you a squeeze. Thanks everyone for listening, and please reach out. I would love to learn about what you're up to and how we can connect. So thanks, Melissa.
Thanks, Amy.
Appreciate you so much. Have a nice day.